Brady. I'm with WMBB. We're doing another Facts Over Fear session. Today we're joined by Panama City Mayor Greg Brudnicki. Mayor, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
What are you hearing from people as this thing goes on, both from residents and city employees and businesses?
Brady, this is another hurricane for us. Our people are trained. Look at the things that have gone on in this area. First, we had the BP oil spill. Then we
Mm-hmm.
had a hurricane. Now we've got COVID. And so this is kind of like the hurricane, but the phones work and the power works. And we can flush the toilet. So it's just another test of the resiliency of our people. I'm fielding a lot of phone calls every day, of course, and the biggest calls are about what is not essential.
Yeah.
And so common sense has to dictate a lot of those things for people. There's several businesses that are not open, but then a lot of essential businesses are, and people just need to practice the social distancing that they're supposed to practice, do the things that they need to do to keep themselves healthy, regardless of where they go. We
Yeah.
got a lot of people working in the grocery stores, a lot of people in the grocery stores. People have to have food. Just understanding where we've been, and looking at the TV and seeing all the different people that are sick all over the world from this issue, this is going to teach us that, even in the future when you just have the flu, stay home. Don't go to work. Don't go to church. Don't go to school. Don't shake hands. Don't hug people. And maybe the 40,000 a year that we lose to the flu will turn into 20,000.
Sure. We've fielded a lot of calls about those essential businesses. I mean, we've heard from workers who are concerned that they're being asked to work or required to work, and they feel like it's unsafe. Have you gotten any guidance at all from the state government about what's essential and what isn't? And can you give people any sort of idea there about what they should and shouldn't be doing over the next month?
Well, I mean, the federal guidelines tell you, but they're vague. But, this is not an exact science. We've never
Sure.
gone through this before. And, I talked to somebody who has a furniture store and people needed a bed. They just got in their house yesterday. Okay.
Hmm.
And now they need a bed. Is that essential for somebody that's been living in a trailer since the hurricane times? Is it essential for them to be able to get a bed from a furniture store? Is it essential that it gets delivered? My advice in that was, being a non-clinician, guess what? Make sure your people have gloves, make sure you wear a mask, make sure that you got a can of Lysol with you, and deliver those people a bed because it's essential for them. If
Sure.
someone feels like they're not being taken care of in the environment of the job that they work in, then they need to cover up as much as they can, or they can tell somebody, hey, guess what? I can't work here. I don't feel safe. I guess that's their choice. But most people, using common sense, we want the businesses to furlough people, not fire them. We
Right.
have this stimulus package of $2 trillion. Now, when it's going to trickle exactly to the banks and be available so that the businesses can get the money and use it to subsidize the ones that, some businesses only go from month to month, just like people go from paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
So the timing is the big thing right now. Is, yes, we've made a promise to get money, but when are we going to get it?
Sure. And I mean, though, if you're asking an employer to keep everyone employed, well, they've got to come up with the money to meet payroll, and they don't have any money coming in right now. Right? I assume that's the issue, right?
Well, that's part of the issue. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that don't have it stockpiled, just like the employees don't have it stockpiled at home.
Sure.
So what they've got to do is go to their bankers. They've got the SBA loan situations set up where that, money can be funded. They just need to make sure that that's, or the bankers need to make sure it's expedited. But the actual procedure for going in and getting this payroll protection money from the economic package that's been set up, that the banks don't have that yet. So everyone needs to get their paperwork, get it turned in, and then as soon as the banks can do that, go ahead and start releasing funds. But there's always going to be a timing difference. Look at the timing difference I've got for the city right now. I spent $120 million on debris bills and infrastructure and all that since the hurricane, and I've right now collected 15. I paid $1,180,000 in interest so far. So I'm hopeful that the federal government will expedite and make sure that these things get funded. It's one thing to make a promise, it's another thing to have the money available and in the bank to spend, because people need to eat today.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of hurricane recovery, I mean, how has this impacted Panama City's hurricane recovery so far, and what do you think the long-term impact will be?
Well, thank goodness that people were smart enough to realize what's the biggest problem that's been, Brady? I'll ask you that question. It's been housing, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Sure.
if they didn't say housing was essential or construction was essential, it would stop. But what do? We practice social distancing. We don't have six people standing there holding one piece of wood all together while they're trying to do something. They have to practice social distancing, but still build. Keep creating housing for our
Yeah.
people, because that's the biggest problem that we've got. So is it essential? It may not be essential in a place that didn't get clobbered by a hurricane, but by God, in Bay County, it's essential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For your employees, for the firefighters and police officers who are working for Panama City, how have you guys been able to do in terms of personal protective equipment? It's been a big issue all across the country and really all across the world. What's the city doing, and what can you do?
Well, we've got masks, we've got gloves. Right now, we've got the things that we need based on the amount of people that are working and based on the amount of risk that we're having to take with the amount of people that are, the calls that we're going on. So it hasn't been a problem from us, much like our funeral business. Everybody in there is essential, just like healthcare workers. And so we're working split shifts. There are certain people in both sides that have to be there to be available. And so social distancing, gloves, masks, all the things that you see people doing is what you need to do to make sure that you can do your job and not contract or spread.
We obviously have a lot of people now who are unemployed through no fault of their own. The school system is delivering meals, but I'm wondering, and they're unemployed, and it seems like they're having trouble getting those unemployment things filed with the state. I know that's a state level problem. That's not a Panama City issue, but what can the city do for now recently unemployed folks?
Well, we were looking at doing a senior feed. We've got a certain number of people that we want to make sure that our people are fed. So we're working now, trying to formulate a plan with the downtown restaurants to apply there's some grants that are available for that, as well as money from our CRA to provide, food for people. And
Sure.
we can't have sit down dining, but we can do a clam lunch, where you got it in a bag or whatever. So we certainly don't want people to go hungry. The furlough as opposed to firing, that's why it's important, if you did have a job, that these particular business owners get access to that stimulus. And I hate calling it stimulus. It's economic survival money. It's not stimulating anything. It's just trying to get us back to the status quo. The business owners and leaders of these businesses that run these businesses need to get their funding from the bank so they can subsidize their employees, because they're going to need them.
Sure, absolutely. Are you, it's been a long decade here in Panama City. Are you sensing any sort of panic from folks? I mean, we've seen this sort of, we keep seeing people go on these giant shopping sprees. Walmart was packed right before and other grocery stores were packed right before the shutdown order went into effect. What can we do to sort of minimize panic from people?
Well, I think that some of that has eased up a little bit. They're keeping the shelves pretty full. I was going to the store, 2 or 3 times a week because you keep forgetting the things that you need to get. And I've got a sick wife at home, so she can't go out and do any shopping. So it's one of those kind of situations where, they have it for early people, or elderly people can go early and
Hmm.
shop. And I think that as long as people will do the social distancing stuff, everybody's been able to get food. Toilet paper was a big deal,
Mm.
and now that's starting to show up again. And there was a lot of people stockpiling in the very beginning, but I don't think for us here in Panama City it's been too bad a problem. A few times, you show up, the shelves are empty. Well, you got to go back. So it does make it tough, but hopefully, everything they're having shorter hours now, gives them more time to clean, more time to fill the shelves. So there's
Sure.
less time to clean the shelves off. Logistically, they get it figured out.
Are you guys seeing any issues in the city with people congregating in groups that are too large, whether they're throwing house parties or they're going to a park or kind of the beachy areas of the city? And what are you doing about that?
Yeah, the answer is no. We really haven't had a problem that I know of people, over congregating or bigger groups, getting together, doing things. We do have our boat ramps open. We do have the parks are open. Okay.
Hmm.
And people just need to practice social distancing, and we're going out and disinfecting the parks where the kids go, and people need to take stuff with them if they're going to go out and do that. So um, as far as I know, we have not, and dealing with the police department, have had a problem with. I think people know this is serious and they're heeding it.
Sure, absolutely. The city also has a homeless population. What's being done there? What can be done there to sort of help that population and make sure that I mean, a spread in the homeless population. Let's say someone there gets coronavirus or COVID-19, can impact the rest of us. Because we're gonna maybe walk down the street and interact with somebody.
It's pretty amazing, Brady, when you start looking at every city has a somewhat
Sure.
of a homeless population. Ours is really not nearly as bad as it was a few years ago, and we deal with kind of the same olds. People. I don't believe that without with the buses bringing in a new crop of people that we haven't seen that lately. You're always going to have it. I'm just hopeful that they're, just about every homeless person that I've come across has a cell phone. So they've got access to the internet. They know what they're supposed to be doing. And we just have to be hopeful that they are not congregating too much and passing something to each other. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people who our first responders will end up, dealing with that population, and then, so if someone there has it, then now we've got an issue with our first responders.
Right.
I kind of, I wonder what the city, Panama City is not Panama City Beach. You don't have a bunch of people necessarily, trying to come down to this side of the bridge from New York City or Atlanta or whatever. But I'm wondering if you guys are taking a look at, are people still kind of showing up from hot spots, and is there anything you can do to prevent that?
Well, since most states around us have travel bans, You know, I doubt that, and if people know the beach is closed, we have not experienced, an influx of people trying to get to an arts center that's closed. You know,
Right.
if people know that there's not much available to them, but being able to go to a grocery store and there's only essential services available. I noticed this morning in my travels around the city that the traffic is very, very light. So I don't see we haven't seen a lot of we haven't experienced, as far as I know, from the city standpoint, from our first responder standpoint, of having an influx of a lot of people. We've still got some people here from out of town that are working, some of our
Sure.
construction people. But other than that, you know,
What are
not too
your
bad.
concern? What are your concerns as this rolls on? We basically have 4 weeks, basically the whole month of sort of only essential services. So, what are your main concerns in the city?
Well, we want to make sure that people stay, number one, that people stay safe, and let's flatten that curve out. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, when do you think we'll be able to do this? When do you think we'll be able to do that? It's going to depend on that curve. It's going to depend on if you see the spike. I think we're up to about 16 cases now
Hmm.
in the county. And when that starts dropping, you can start predicting when things are going to maybe head back toward normalcy. And that would be for us.
Hmm.
When is it going to change for places like New York, New Orleans, stuff like that? I really can't say. But as they go, we still have to be very cognizant of their situations. And we don't, I mean, just because, let's say, for example, ours tails off to next to nothing in another couple of weeks, does that mean everybody can start going somewhere else and traveling
Right.
again?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you got to be careful of. And we want to make sure that people, we want to maintain the social distancing. I had people asking me about, well, what about college football this year? I said, I doubt there's going to be that many people want to pack into a stadium in September. But now, if this gets cured in June,
Sure.
it could happen. But
Sure.
we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, China turned theirs around, if we can believe what we see and what we
Yeah.
hear, depending on which network you got on.
Yeah.
So they're slowed down and changed. Ours affects a lot of people. We had a lot of people in New York that got it and spread to a lot of different places because it's such a metropolitan area that. So it's time's gonna tell. And if they get these hydrochloroquine things and Z-Pack things combinations together, they go, hey, we know this works. It works 90% of the time. We can use it as a prophylactic and a preventative and stuff. And all that's
Hmm.
going to play into the time frames.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what What else do you think needs to be done that isn't? Is there anything that isn't being done right now that city, state, federal government needs to be doing?
Well, we just need to get the money expedited, of course, to help people. I can't think of anything right offhand that I would change and say, oh yeah, we should be doing this because we're not doing what we should be doing. I can say that I think this is not an exact science. This has not happened before. A lot of these things are, you've got clinicians, you've got economists, you've got a combination of things here that we have never experienced before. But the number one job of government, as I have always said, is to keep you safe and keep you from being defrauded. So if keeping you healthy keeps you safe, that's our number one priority. We're doing everything we can now to do that. And then once that becomes less of a risk for people to be safe, then we can focus more on the economic issue. But part of the economic issue is getting money in their hands so they can eat and stay safe and healthy. So there's a fine line there. Let's just hope that the forms get passed on to the bankers and that they can do what they need to do, and the state government can get unemployment to the people that need to have it, and that gets expedited, and it's a number one priority.
All right. Well, Mayor, I appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you very much for hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll talk again under better circumstances real soon.
Absolutely, Brady. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you. And I just